Horns up and welcome to another episode of Heavy Conversations. I'm your host Demonstealer. I'm a death metal musician from India, and today I want to talk about rejection. Rejection is something we all face in life. Whether you didn't get into a college that you applied to, or a job interview didn't go well, or perhaps you fell in love with someone who doesn't feel the same way. We face rejection in every aspect of life. And as musicians and artists, we face rejection constantly for our craft, for the things we attempt to do. And that rejection is, I feel, very different from other aspects of life, because when you create art or music, when you write a song, you put so much of your emotion into that. You put so much of your sort of innermost feelings, you put everything into that. And I'm sure as musicians you might relate to this. The rejection from that feels a lot worse, at least I think so. And I figured that was something we could talk about. And of course, before I take the conversation forward, I definitely want to make it very clear that I'm not doing this podcast or talking about this subject for sympathy or pity from anyone. This is just something I feel we as musicians should be more open about. We should talk about it, because I do think this is one of the things that is often brushed under the rug, and I definitely hope that talking about it will help many other musicians who are struggling with the same thing. So, and the reason I even thought of doing this episode or making the subject matter of this episode rejection is because I uploaded the first episode of this podcast like less than 2 days ago, and I went all out to promote it. I posted it on my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I shared it. I even joined threads to promote it, and I sent mailing. I sent out a mailer to my mailing list, which has like 1,400 people on my Bandcamp. I also sent it to my band's mailing list. I also posted it on my band's social media. That's not all. I even have two food accounts. For those who know me a little better, I have two food accounts which are actually pretty popular. I have a YouTube channel with 687,000 subscribers called Headbangers Kitchen. I posted on the community tab of that. I posted on the Instagram stories. I retweeted the tweet from the account. I did everything to push that episode, and it got 350 views on YouTube. I won't lie, I was pretty deflated seeing that. And it's not because I expected the episode to get like 10, 20,000 views or 100,000 views, or I didn't even expect it to get 5,000 views. But I was just thinking, like 6 or 7 years ago, I did an Indian metal podcast and that got like 1,500 views in the first 24 hours. But now it just feels like rejection. And it is a sort of bitter pill to swallow, even if you are sort of realistic about things. Like, I definitely didn't expect anyone to listen to it. But then when you think about it, the amount I promoted it, the amount of people that follow me, only 350 people took the time to click on the YouTube video. Yeah, again, like I said, nobody owes me anything. This is not a podcast for sympathy or pity, but no matter how realistic I am, no matter how low my expectations are, that doesn't feel good. It feels very deflating. And I thought what I could do is, look, I don't know if I know how to handle rejection in the best way. But what I thought I could do is talk to you guys and tell you about all the rejections that I faced in my 25 years. And there have been a lot of them. And maybe just me sharing my experience might give some other musician a little more hope, a little more comfort, a little more understanding of what the journey forward entails. Or if they've been doing this for a while, maybe they'll feel that they're not alone, and that if like, because here's the funny thing, people always think you are doing better than you actually are. Like, I mean, I've never called myself anything else other than, like, just another musician. But people tend to think, oh man, you've been around, you played this huge festival, you played that festival, I mean, your music career is awesome, everything is going great, I mean, you're collaborating with like all these amazing musicians. And true, all that is frankly great, but that doesn't save me from being rejected for a lot of things. And that's why I just thought, if I kind of told you my story right from the beginning, uh, and maybe share how I dealt with it at that point in time, it might just help you. So, for those of you who know me, I started making music around 1998. I was young, I was enthusiastic, I felt like I could take on the world. And I started writing music. I looked around for band members for 2 years. I guess that was my first rejection. In a way, the inability to find musicians who could either play the music I wanted to play or who had the interest to play the music I wanted to play. Because I asked many people, like, hey, I need a drummer, and somebody would say, hey, this guy plays drums, and I'd go up to that fella and be like, hey, would you like to play in my band? And they'd be like, no. And I'd be like, oh, okay. Well, rejection. But I think in those days, it's like, it didn't really faze me, it didn't bother me. I was like, I'll just keep looking. And I was lucky enough to find musicians. I was able to put together the band in the year 2000, and we started our journey. I think in those days there were really no promoters in India, so there was no one really organizing gigs. There were no record labels in India for metal music, so a lot of stuff I had to kind of do on my own. And it was kind of like, okay, there's no one here to do it for me, we'll just do it ourselves. And that's pretty much what we did. But there was a festival called Independence Rock and another one called the Great Indian Rock Festival, and both these festivals were like the two big festivals in India at that point. And I remember sending demos for like 2, 3, 4 years and getting rejected every year. And in those days I was an angry young metalhead. So whenever we saw the final list of bands playing these festivals, we would just be like, oh, screw them. They're probably like, friends with the organizers, or they just like, they play like commercial music and they're sellouts, and that's why they're, making it. Or, maybe the organizer just doesn't like death metal. So we always had a more angry approach to the rejection. It was more like, just, screw the whole world. Like, that was the vibe back in the day. And I remember when we finally got into Independence Rock in 2002, it was a great feeling to kind of finally have been able to break through and get that slot that we all coveted. But we got rejected by the crowd. That first show, luckily, we played first, so the crowd was not too drunk and not too angry. But like, we got booed, they threw cups at us, paper cups, and I even threw a t-shirt like, hey guys, free merch, and they're like, your merch sucks as much as you, and they threw it back. And that was a rejection. But for me at that point, I don't think I got upset about it very much. I was just like, screw it, the crowd doesn't understand death metal, and like, whatever. But I think in those days I had a much had a harder shell in front of me. Like, I could brush things off much easier than I can today. I think because then we also had sort of a, like, we were not a good band. Like, I let an out of tune guitar get on my album, so I wasn't a very proficient musician. So I had obviously like some kind of delusion that I was making great music, and which is fine, because as a musician your music will always mean more to you than it does anyone else. And it was my personal songs, it just felt personal to me. So I was very like, we are good and this is great music. And of course now I look back and things are different, but like, that was the first taste of rejection. And I think that if you don't have that kind of self-belief and confidence, even if you're not great, it is very hard to go forward. Because I'm thinking now, if I had just been like, oh, you know what, they're right, I should just give up, I'm a bad musician, I wouldn't be here today. So that little bit of confidence, that little bit of self-belief is what you need. to kind of get through the initial days, at least when when you get that kind of rejection. Because look, nobody starts out being amazing. Even if you are picking up an instrument, you are not going to be great from the first day onwards. You're going to take a couple of years to just learn the instrument, and then once you start writing music as a band, it takes time to find your sound, to get cohesive as a unit. Today, of course, the standard of musicianship and writing is already at a very high level. So kids are learning things much faster, and it's a different time now. But nonetheless, there's still rejection, right? Like in the old days, yeah, you could just be a tight band and you'd be better than 80% of the other artists. Today you have to probably write more unique and better music than the artist, because everybody is at the same sort of playing level when it comes to tightness and skill and all that. So those were kind of the initial days of sort of being rejected. But that's only the beginning. We've always sort of been rejected by the Bombay crowd. When most bands play in their hometown, they feel welcome, they feel like that's their city, like the home show, the home stretch, you feel welcome, you feel like you belong. For Demonic Resurrection, that was never the case. After that 2002 rejection at iRock, I think in 2006 or something, we played another Independence Rock and we got stones thrown at us because people just didn't like the music we were playing. And by that time, we were a much better band. We were actually, like a tight band on stage. We actually had much better songs. Were we the best band? Probably not, but we were good enough, I know. And we got stones thrown at us. In fact, most of us were able to dodge them, but poor Mephisto got hit on the head because, the keyboard player can't move from the keyboard. So he got hit on the head. One of the stones got stuck in his keys and he couldn't play a particular part as well. That was just one of them. When we won the Metal Hammer Golden God Award. Oh no, wait, there's more. 2007, Sam Dunn came to India and was filming a concert that I organized for his movie Global Metal. We had a bunch of guys come in with like pamphlets to give Sam's crew saying, hey, these bands don't represent Indian metal. Check out XYZ band. And then they tried to disrupt the show also. I was like, that's also rejection. Like that somebody would go to that extent to do such shitty things, it is a rejection whichever way you look at it. Similarly, won the Golden God Award in 2010 in the UK, represented our country, felt great that we, had done something no Indian band has done. We thought, yeah, we'll come to India, come back home, because we were playing at the Rolling Stone Metal Awards. And we thought, we'll come back, it'll be a great celebration for us. And yeah, that night was just once again hecklers in the crowd, people from other bands, fans who didn't like what we did, or they had like, oh, my favorite band is not doing well and it's your fault because you're doing well. That means you're probably taking the space that my favorite band should have had. And that night, what should have been a great celebration was another rejection, and that too in our hometown. Similarly, we did another iRock where again we had hecklers. I don't think it was like till like 2015 where we opened for Megadeth, when it actually felt like, yeah, finally this feels a bit like a home show, like where we had the support of the big crowds. Because obviously we played club shows and those were, most of the time they were fine because, mostly our fans would show up. But like the bigger shows, there were a lot more bands, so a lot more people showed up who wouldn't necessarily pay for a ticket to see us in a small club. And that was a lot of rejection for us. And that, we dealt with it. We were just like, we will not let the haters take us down, And there's a difference, obviously, like I said, rejection comes in many forms. And in this case, if somebody is giving you this kind of treatment, you just have to stand your ground and just like become the bulldozer and just run them down and just keep going and doing what you do. At least that's what we did, And I think at that point, I also, DR had a good lineup in the sense that we'd been together for some time. The members were committed and it felt like I had the support system then to actually deal with that rejection. So that really helped. And of course, now let's talk about record labels. I've been writing to record labels ever since I wrote the first album, and most of the times record labels don't even give you a response. You'll send an email and it'll go into the void and it will never ever be replied to. I was lucky enough over the years when I worked with Nuclear Blast to license Dimmu Borgir to put out in India. um, I was able to at least get a response, and when I put out Behemoth's album in 2009, I was able to get in touch with Candlelight Records, who did sign us, and we did put out 2 albums with them. But I've had a lot of rejections from record labels. In fact, when I did my solo album, This Burden Is Mine, with George Colliers on drums, I was so sure. I was like, now I've got like the best drummer in the world. I've got a great album. Hopefully we can find a label to put it out. I just I got more and more rejection emails. Few of them replied, most of them went into that void where there is no response. I think I have about 6 or 7 rejection emails from like Season of Mist and Nuclear Blast. And again, I'm grateful that I was able to even get a response when most bands won't even get a reply. But it was a constant rejection that, like, no matter how good your music is, no matter how who's playing on the album, or what quality of musicians you have, record labels, I mean, you could still not get anything. You could still be rejected no matter what. Similarly, we played so many festivals. We played Inferno Festival in 2010. We played Brutal Assault. We played Metal Days, Bloodstock, Wacken. But the funny thing is, you can still get rejected. Like, I know festivals don't book the same band every year. Like, there's at least a year gap, some festivals even 4. But all these festivals that we've played, I've written to them again and I've been rejected by all of them. So it honestly doesn't, like, at some point I felt like, what, it doesn't even matter if you play a festival one year. Like, the next year they'll be like, yeah, we're not interested. The year after that, yeah, still not interested. The year after that, yeah, what, maybe we'll think about it next year. And you may never get booked again. And there's nothing you can really do about it. Like, I used to send close to 100 emails every single year. I'm not kidding. Even 100 emails to every single European metal festival that I could find. I would write to them, I'd send them a mail, I'd send them the music, and just hope to get booked. We played Bloodstock in 2012. I thought, great, we have something to show for now. Like, we played a big festival. Next year is right to all these other festivals. Yeah, you know what, it doesn't matter that you played Bloodstock. Like, shit. Right again. Okay, we played Metal Days, we've played Brutal Assault. What about Summer Breeze? What about this festival, that festival? Nope, not interested. And that's the thing, right? Like, it's very, very hard. And I think this constant rejection over the years is what actually broke me. We tried to book tours with other bands as well. Like, I won't name any bands, but like, we've gotten offers to open for like some pretty big bands. It's like, yeah, you need to pay 600 euros every day for 30 days to be on this tour. Or you need to get yourself to the venues each show, and you got to pay $250 to play each show. And some of them are just like straight up, yeah, you need to give 15,000 euros and you can come on the bus and that's it. And I'm not rich. I don't have 15,000 euros lying around, and I can't even take a loan of 15,000 euros because that 15,000 euros is never going to come back. Like, there's only so much merch you can sell on a tour. So, like, I was just broken at the end of this. Like, like I said, earlier was an angry young metal kid with fire in the belly, and I'd just punch through every rejection and just keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. At some point, it completely broke me. In 2018, I was so tired of the constant rejections and I lost years. I lost 2 years waiting on people that promised me things and they didn't deliver. And I was just left hanging. And at that point, the rejection got to me. I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. I can't write 100 emails, get replies from maybe 4 out of the 100 saying we can't book your band or whatever. I can't keep writing to booking agencies saying, hey, do you have a tour that we can go on? And there's no scope, So I just completely gave up in 2018, and I said I can't do this anymore. And we did the last Demonic Resurrection Mumbai show in 2018. We haven't played since then. Did one in Delhi in 2018, and we did one final UK tour in 2019. And after that, I haven't seen the stage. I don't even know if I would ever be able to get back to touring, because it's it's very, very difficult to put yourself out there when you've been rejected so many times. um, I'm sure there are many musicians and bands who feel the same way, who have had that rejection. um, and this is not even talking about the music. Like, the music is a whole other ball game, and I think I find that rejection a lot less um, bothersome. Like, if somebody says I don't like your music, that doesn't bother me. It's like, okay, cool, he that person has different tastes, but it's the industry side of things that are really, really difficult and soul crushing, so to speak. And at this point, I think it was during the pandemic is when I kind of felt like, what, I am a very privileged person that I was able to make music while the world was literally like falling apart. And that's kind of why I even got back to writing music, because I was like, look, I can't do the touring bit of it. It's too hard, it's too expensive, and it was only going to get worse with the pandemic. So I let that part of things go, um, and I just said, what, if I can make music, I'll start doing that. And I did. I put out an album in 2020. I put a EP in 2020. I put out an EP in 2021, and in 2023 I put out my album The Propaganda Machine. And I was very lucky that I signed to a label for that release that is helping me put out physical CDs and vinyl. So that's been most of my journey when it comes to like rejection. Like I said, every musician goes through it. I don't know if I have an appropriate way to deal with it. I think talking about it is what helps me kind of make peace with things. And I know I post a lot about this on Facebook, and I've been called a crybaby and a whiny guy and blah, blah, blah. But for me, I think being able to do that and even just sort of make this podcast is how I'm able to deal with it and sort of not lose my mind. I mean, there are days where I just look at my Instagram and I see all my friends who are in bands or bands that I know personally, and I see them touring the world, and a little part of me dies inside. I know I'm being dramatic, but it does. But I'm also happy for them, because they are my friends. They are people I want to see do well. I am rooting for them. But it is a reminder of the sort of failures that I consider I've had. And like I said, most people look from the outside. They don't really understand what I'm going through. They don't know what my journey has been. And maybe this will open it up for the 200 or 300 people who are actually going to listen to this podcast. And I am grateful. I am grateful for every single person that takes the time to listen to my songs or this podcast, or buys a CD, or bought a ticket or a t-shirt or a CD or anything. It is incredibly fulfilling. And that's a strange thing about music and being a metal musician, or at least for me it has been, is that even though there is so much pain and like so much sadness in doing this, it's also the thing that I could not imagine my life without. It is the thing that has kept me going for 20 odd years. The sort of dream to be able to make music and just do that for like a living. Of course, like I said, over the years, from being a sort of immature metal teen to a more mature, realistic, and trying to find balance in life adult, my perspective has changed a lot. Obviously, I don't believe that even if I was able to do a lot more musically and tour a lot more, I don't think it would ever be able to afford the lifestyle that I have here in India. And I think that's a different story for a different day. But of course, if you guys have any questions or if there are any topics you'd like me to dive into, let me know in the comments below, and maybe that can be the subject of the next podcast. I think this is a good spot to end this. I hope this has been insightful and interesting for you to listen to. So I thank you for giving me your time, and I'll see you on the next episode of Heavy Conversations. This one was definitely extreme. Anyway, till then, cheers and stay metal.